This is Ken from Coffee Crafters, and I wanted to show you how to change a heat element in an Artisan 9 or Artisan XE. We actually haven't lost any elements in this roaster yet, but some of the people with the original Artisan 9s might want to upgrade to the new hotter heat element. And so this is how the heat element is going to arrive to you. Anik, you want to get in here close? And your new heat element is a little bit different than the old heat element if you have the Artisan 9, and it's going to come with these jumper cables on here, and the terminals that you have are in here. If we look at the old Artisan 9 heat element, you'll see that these terminals are separated like this, so it's a little bit different. Just remember, both of the black terminals would go on one of these, the red on one of these, and it doesn't matter which side they go on as long as you make sure to get the wire sets on the color-coded sides, black to black, red to red. The hard part about this project is when you go to change the heat element, you need to break your roaster down to this point right here. Take the mast off, take the hood off, get it down and remove the face. And then what we're going to do, because we have to remove the floor panel, and we're going to put the roaster up on its side to do that, and then I'm going to set the roaster on its face. It helps to have another person when you're doing this. Easiest way to do it is to get it up on a table where you can get underneath it. So I'm just going to remove the floor. I'm going to turn this around here so you can see it a little bit better. So the feet bolt the floor panel in place. So we have to get in there, and we use a 7/16. It's a 1/4 inch bolt, a 7/16 inch wrench, and reach in there. Get those loose. And there's a nut and a lock washer on the inside, so we remove all 4 of those. So that's how those go together. All right, so we've got all 4 feet out, and that bottom panel will come right out. We're going to set that aside, and that's going to expose the bottom of the roaster. So I'm going to lift my assembly table up a little bit. That's why it's easy to do this. If you set it up on a tabletop, you can get in behind it. You'll see the motor in here, and you see the air box. And what I'm going to do to make this job easier is I'm going to go ahead and take the motor out. We don't have to remove the motor from the mount plate. We're just going to take the mount plate out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the ties in here. Take out the ground screw in the bottom of the air box. So now I can go ahead and unplug the motor. And now, so the motor's free from the air box, and there are 4 1032 Keps nuts, 2 on each side of this bracket, 2 down here and 2 up there. And we're just going to remove those. Okay, so we took the nuts and washers off of this, and the way that this works, this slides. Nick, can you get over here? You'll see the little slotted screws in there. So I'm going to pull this thing up and then tip it out, and the motor comes out. And if you get in here close, Anik, you can see there are 12 832 nuts that go over the studs in the bottom of the heat chamber. And we're going to take those out, and that's going to expose the heat element inside. And so I'm going to go ahead and sit down and take those out. To take them out, it takes 30 seconds. I'll use a nut driver to make it faster. So I'll go ahead and start on that. Okay, so I took all 12 of those nuts out, and I can push this aside and expose the heat element leads. So you see where the leads are at in here? And we're just going to pull those off. So we'll pull these leads out. Sometimes it gets stuck on there. One of the things we don't do is we do not reuse these leads. So your new element's going to come with the leads on it. Don't reuse the old ones. We're going to set those aside. Once you take them on and off, it stretches them out, and we want that to have a really good contact. So we're going to take out the heat element. So this is a regular Artisan 10 XE heat element. Now one of the things to be really careful of, when you take the heat element out, it really helps to have another person, because we're going to put that heat element in first. We do not want to push those studs through the floor. Sometimes I'll even get up here and I put my hand up on the neck and push it in tight so that the studs are sticking through the floor as far as you can get them. Then we're going to take the new heat element and we're going to slide it right back into place. And again, I'm going to hold the top of the mount tube there. Put it over that. And now we're going to put the air box back on. So you see we have the leads there. I'm going to put these red lead wires up on top on the red leads. Okay. Put the black wires on the black leads. Okay. Now I'm going to put that air box back into place. And again, it helps if you have somebody up on the top end holding those leads in. I'm going to check to make sure they're all plugged in tight. They're all plugged in tight. Because that heat chamber has a tendency to push back through the floor, and it can be hard to get it started again. There we go. What I do to make this job easier is I get one of these nuts back on there in opposite corners, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my gun to tighten two of them back up. And what that did is that sucked all the studs back down through the floor. So I'll go ahead and take a little bit of time here and put the other 10 back on. Okay, we got the 12 nuts back on here holding the air box into place, so it's all tightened down. We have our two motor leads that we're going to set up on top of the air box. So we tip this thing in, and you'll see there's two studs down here and two up there. That's what these go into. And we're going to tip them in those slots and then push it sideways. And when you push it sideways, the side of this bracket will touch the side of the air box, and that's how you know that it's up tight. Okay, so we got the motor back in. We got it tightened down with these 4 nuts. And I'll put the ground screw back in. When we ship you your new element, we'll ship you a couple of zip ties, and what that's for is to put these motor wire, hold the motor wires in place. All right, cut those off. All right, so the new heat element's in, and what we're going to do now, we're going to tip the roaster back up on its side. It's much easier to put the floor panel back on. And what I do is I'll use a couple of the feet to hold the floor panel in place while I put it together. That way it'll sit there while we're... All right. So I'll take a little bit of time here and put the feet back together. And with the feet we have 4 1/4-inch nuts and lock washers to lock those feet back down. And one of the important things is, because this is free, this thing can move back and forth. Now what I do in the factory is I have I have a spreader bar I put on there to make sure it's in the right place. And the reason I do this is when you go to put that front panel back on, if I tighten the feet down, it tightens them down so they won't move. Well, if those bottom screws aren't in place, you may have to use like an awl to pull them back into place so you can get the screws started. I use this so I don't have to use an awl, but you may have to do that. So if you go to put the front panel back on, the screws don't line up, you can get in there with an awl like this in the screw hole and bend it out, and you can move that back and forth until you can get your screw started. Okay, so we got the heat element in, got the wires hooked back up, got them reattached. And again, one of the things that can happen to you when you go to put this together is I use my little spreader bar down here to make sure that these were right, because when I tighten the feet up and they can move back and forth, they can get set in the wrong place. So when I put my top on, I'm going to put those 3 screws in first on the top. And what I would suggest doing is get them all started on the face before you tighten any of them down. That lets them move around as much as they can. And it's especially important to get the ones in the 2 bottom corners, because if those 2 go in, everything else will line up. I didn't tighten it all the way down. And then I'm going to see if this one will go. And we're good. So those 2 started. Now what you might have to do is you might have to use an awl, like I said, to pry those back into place, get those bottom 2 started. If those get started, then you're home free. And that's basically it.